Welcome back to the Goon Multiplayer Spectacular Grand Final! Sydin as the Kabuto Fujiwara is facing off against Yukitsu as the Kamakura Minamoto. Sydin has brought a mixed army with 3 sword attendants, 4 bow levy at the front, a foot samurai unit, a single Naginata warrior monk, and a Naginata levy unit. While, on the other hand, Yukitsu has brought a quality-based army, consisting of 3 Naginata warrior monks, a 2 Naginata levy, a mounted samurai unit, and 1 sword attendant unit. As you can see, both players have elected to rush the center. That is where the workshop is, probably the most important building in this particular map. The archery dojo on the right hand side here is of limited use for both players, as neither has really bought a archery complement that is worthy of that particular building, given that to take it would be to mean that you would have to cede the farmhouse or the workshop, both of which are objectively superior. If Sydin can take the archery dojo, that will help his skirmishing immensely, but at the same time, it's not absolutely necessary for him to do so. The bow levy are good mass arrow fire, and that's really all they need to be to make it very expensive to mount an attack or to attempt to seize the workshop. Yukitsu has gone immediately for the farmhouse with his Naginata levy. Levy are useful for this, as they are particularly expendable in the event of, say, being peppered with arrow fire, or if they get caught and destroyed, it's usually a minimal cost. Now, he's also sent his mounted samurai to the archery dojo, probably with the objective of preventing Sydin from taking it. Quite the shrewd move, and enables him to harass across the river. Now, it's very unusual that Sydin is being incredibly meek. Both sides are hiding their forces in the trees, which makes sense for Yukitsu, but less so for Sydin. Really, he needs even just a single bow levy sent out, because Yukitsu's forces are primarily melee, very few ranged and none on this flank. Need just a single bow levy sent out just to pepper shots into this Naginata levy, just so it's not free for Yukitsu to take the farmhouse. And probably something on the similar on the right-hand side, just 2 bow levy, possibly backed up by a Naginata warrior monk unit in the trees. Yukitsu won't be able to see the monk unit in the trees and have to assume that it's there, because the mounted samurai are just too expensive to throw away against a bow unit like that, and they just can't survive massed arrow numbers as mounted horsemen. So you could really push them off with aggressive forces. So Sydin's being particularly timid at the moment, and that's not what wins you fights. Yukitsu has taken the farmhouse, and Sydin has decided that he can't sit here all day. He's going to need to take the workshop and has planted his troops in the center line, skirmishing to cover with, as you can see, the mounted samurai. This is just bow levy. They've killed 7 of the mounted samurai already, and that's just about recouped the cost of the bow levy. These sword attendants, however, the countercharge of Yukitsu's is going to do massive damage. We can see that a third of that unit is down already. Very, very powerful. Both players have popped Banzai, and so those guys will fight to the death. The counterattack is coming, and here it is in style. The sword attendants coming in against the levy and also against the monks. Now, the issue is they're charging through the water, and water really damages your capacity to deal a powerful charge. It absolutely eats your momentum, and that's a real problem. The fire is definitely going big on this side, with the monks taking some damage, but not much. It's not going to look too good on this entire left flank, although it appears that the left flank may have sufficient forces to hold, but those warrior monk heroes are going to be a problem. We can see the fights immediately split into 2 separate sections, with Sydin sending his general in against the mounted samurai to buy time so that his forces on this right flank here can collapse Yukitsu's and hopefully bring about a quick end to this fight. Nevertheless, that's going to get very expensive very quickly. We can see his general unit's already down to half strength. These sword attendants are not going to hold against these Naginata warrior monks. But on the other hand, these Naginata levy have been routed, and while Yukitsu has popped hold firm on the Naginata warrior monk hero, the Naginata levy are having none of that. And these monks are slowly getting whittled down. The Tetsubo warrior monk hero is in the fight, and It's Levy. I'm surprised they're doing as well as they are, honestly. They must have got a pretty poor charge off, but they do appear to be whittling them down. So maybe he will be able to hold that. Sydin's been forced to bring his bow levy into melee combat against these mounted samurai so he can pull out the shattered remains of his general, keeping him alive. That general is now incredibly vulnerable and will need to be babied for the remainder of the fight. The foot samurai on the left flank, we can see they're going to come in, and that should be the killing firepower that Sydin needs to seize the left flank. But we can see on the right flank here that Yukitsu is in a pretty commanding position. Sydin's forces have just broke. These warrior monks won't hold, so we've got a complete collapse on the right-hand side for Sydin's forces. And on the left-hand side here, we can see that even the Naginata warrior monk heroes have had enough and have collapsed. So we've traded sides. We've gone from the top of both hills to the left and the right at the bottom of the valley. Will Sydin just take the farmhouse, knock it off temporarily, or will he just decide it's time for the fight? These mounted samurai, they're pretty beat up, but they're still hassling forces well. As we can see, new battle lines drawn up, and to be honest, if we look at the forces that are remaining, we've got a full unit of foot samurai for Sydin. His Tetsubo warrior monk heroes are in perfect shape. Bow levy, about 2 regiments of bow levy left, and a 3/4 strength Nagi levy unit. On Yukitsu's side, mounted samurai, which are basically rendered irrelevant at this particular point, useful only for minor harassing. A full-strength Naginata warrior monk unit, 2 full-strength Naginata warrior monk units, and a remnant. So it's 2 Naginata warrior monk units and a full-strength general against what appears to be 2 bow levy and a regiment of foot samurai, plus the Tetsubo warrior monk hero. Sydin's really going to need to leverage his hero if he's going to win this, because that's the majority of his melee killing capacity. However, his skirmishing works to his advantage. He still has a huge ranged advantage and should be able to do respectable damage to Yukitsu's forces. He needs to be aggressive with his skirmishing. Yukitsu doesn't have the cavalry to push his bows out if he decides to attack, and so needs to use his range to just push and hopefully seize the building. The workshop would be fantastic to push. If Sydin can get his forces in the open a little bit, possibly in the river to make charges difficult, and then use his ranged advantage to pepper shots into Yukitsu's forces and force him to either cede the workshop or come to him, it'll put him in a very powerful position. But if he can't do that, if he can't leverage the ranged firepower that he has available to him, he'll simply get destroyed in a stand-up fight. And we can see that he's not doing that. He's not bringing his ranged firepower to bear. Yukitsu is doing exceptionally well skirmishing with his general's bodyguard and the mounted samurai, bringing them in around the flanks, finding the holes, constantly probing the ranged component of Sydin's forces, and whittling down those Naginata levy, which represent the bulk of Sydin's killing potential, the bodies that will be necessary to absorb the charge, lest his heroes get completely overwhelmed. So it's interesting to see, but he is actually taking the workshop with these levy, and he's also maneuvering his forces so that Yukitsu doesn't have a clear shot at the workshop, which is definitely an interesting thing to do. But we can see Yukitsu just runs his general's bodyguard into the command zone, and that immediately reduces the capture of the workshop. But he did lose a general's bodyguard doing that, as a bow levy was counter-firing, so he could win that. Sydin could win a trade in that scenario, but at the same time, it's not looking all that good. But both forces are pretty close to fresh now. They've been standing around for a little bit, and both players are really looking for an opening. I think Yukitsu's worked out now that he really has to attack. He's not going to be able to skirmish the workshop back, and if Sydin manages to get the workshop, that extra armor and melee defense for even just the bulk of the bow levy, the sheer number of men that the monks will have to cut down, it slows down their killing rate, which slows down how fast the bow levy get afraid. It also reduces the morale of the Naginata warrior monks, because they're not killing the enemy as fast as they're expecting to, and that worries them. So it's still interesting, but maybe this Naginata levy will flee. It's just been whittled down at 20 less units. But no, Sydin has seized the workshop. He's managed to get it. And so it looks like Yukitsu's attack might not be in time. We've got shots coming in. We'll see if there's much damage done here. 84. So they've whittled down. They've lost maybe 10 of them, but it's not really a lot. And the samurai are coming in from the side. We have a Banzai with the Tetsubo! And this should be impressive. Slamming right in, we can see the warrior monk numbers dropping. Look at that. Look at Tetsubos do ridiculous damage. And immediately the Naginata warrior monks don't like what's going on. However, the bow levy have been caught by the mounted samurai. But the mounted samurai might not have the numbers to do it. I'm really expecting a war cry at this point from the Tetsubo warrior monk hero, while those Naginata warrior monks were also whistling arrowed to combine the morale shock. But it didn't happen, and in fact, Sydin is the one that has been war cried by Yukitsu. Nevertheless, we can see it's very, very tight. Generals on both sides skirmishing to stay out of range. And the mounted samurai, well, they're not doing a lot of damage to these bow levy. Actually, they're doing a bit, but they're not dying either. And how are the Tetsubos going? Well, they've got 70 kills. They're doing rather well. Those Naginata warrior monks are beat up, and it looks like the other unit has shattered. So they're down to 20 men, 46 men there. There's not a lot of men left, but on the other hand, there's not a lot of quality left. But the foot samurai of Sydin's are into Yukitsu's bodyguard, and in fact, his Tetsubos have shattered the remaining warrior monks. They need to be getting down into this bodyguard while they're open with a chance. In fact, with the fleeing units, it looks like that's going to do it. We've got, we're down to the dregs. Oh, and there they go for Sydin. Yukitsu's forces still just holding in there. How much longer they can handle, I don't know. There's just really nothing left. We've got wavering, they've shattered. It looks like just the general, and there he goes. What an amazing finish. Sydin versus Yukitsu, 1-1. We're now on to the third round and the decider of the grand final. What a great match, what great players. I'm absolutely amazed and honored to be able to watch it and bring this to you. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.